Alrighty here. So Joseph Smith, I'm going to do a little video on his early life, just to get a little taste for it. I'll do a more deep dive into theology and everything. I'm just fascinated by this Joseph Smith character. He's like somebody that I love to watch, but is a deranged man. Now I'm just going to talk about his early life, and I'm going to throw in a little bit, maybe more forward examples. But Joseph Smith, he was born December 23rd, 1805. Smith was born at Sharon, Vermont, the fifth of 11 children born to Joseph and Lucy Mack Smith. By 1817, the Smith family had moved to the burned-over district of western New York, and that's an area which is involved in the Second Great Awakening, they call it, where religions would amp up fire and burn out. So this is what Smith was around all the time. And out of this movement, Mormonism, the Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witness, there's another group, I can't think of it right now. But his family had very strong ties to folk magic practices. Joseph himself was a proclaimed seer, a person who could use sensory deprivation involving a top hat and a rock, or a seer stone. He did not only find treasure, he could never touch a spade. As the seer and ritual leader, that the treasure would be sunk into the ground by the spirit that was guarding the treasure if he picked up a shovel. How convenient. He doesn't have to do any heavy lifting. His bad reputation began to grow before he even thought of Mormon as a title. He would lead men to spots on their land, of course, for a fee, also requiring 6 swords placed in a circle around Spanish gold. Now, also, they're going to take somebody's livestock, slit their throat, guide the beast, usually a goat, around the circle of 6 swords 3 times. And now, I just personally believe symbology always has a purpose. The Bible calls magic blasphemous. In Exodus 22:18, you shall not permit a sorceress to live. Leviticus 19:31, do not turn to mediums or necromancers. Do not seek them out and make yourselves unclean by them. I am the Lord your God. Now, they would tell me that was mistranslated. It's a big, big concept in them. He was actually going to retranslate the entire Bible, but he never got around to it because he got shot. Now, the restorer of God's kingdom just doesn't seem to be a thing Joseph Smith could produce. See, in Hebrews 1:1-2, God spoke through the prophets in the past, but now speaks through his Son. His Son has spoke. His Son has written the Gospels. Our Gospels are here. The church didn't organize until 1830, but his first vision, he claims, happened in or around 1820. This account of vision has changed over and over until it made a place in the prophet's history as the first vision, where he saw not only Jesus, but the Father and Son. Exodus 33:20. And he said, you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. Now, 1823, this is what I've gathered so far, is when he had his first vision of Moroni, the white, you heard that right, the white Native American angel, which I believe for every equinox, for 4 years he would go and meet with Moroni until he was guided to the golden plates, which is where the Book of Mormon comes from, which reads honestly like Bible fan fiction. An example of this, I look at Isaiah 6:8, and he said, go and tell this people, be ever hearing but understanding, be ever seeing but never perceiving. While the Book of Mormon states in the Book of Abraham 3:27, also in Isaiah 6:28, he says, he stood up and he said, here am I, send me. And he said, go and tell this people, be ever hearing but never understanding, be ever seeing but never perceiving. Now, sorry for the mix-up. But now, in the Book of Mormon, the Book of Abraham, 3:27, and the Lord said, Who shall I send? And one man answered like unto the Son of Man, Here am I, send me. And another answered and said, Here am I, send me. And the Lord said, I will send the first. Now this is central to Mormon theology. When earth was created, Jesus and his brother, Lucifer, are trying to have man's life, either with the freedom to worship or not. Jesus' plan was to give us free agency, which is what they call it, not free will. The Smiths were a middling farm family, but suffered a fatal loss when Smith Sr., after speculating in the ginseng and being cheated by a business associate, was financially ruined. After he sold the family farm to pay his debts, the Smiths crossed the boundary dividing independent ownership from tedious and day labor. Yeah, so basically they weren't rich, but they weren't wanting. But his father got swindled. And at some point in this time frame, Joseph was actually put on trial for glass looking, or another word, witchcraft, and was acquitted but ran out of the very town, which is a very common thing in his life. Now, one thing I found from his past life, or his early life, that I truly do feel bad for Joseph for was when he caught typhoid fever that infected part of his bone. And the most common way to get rid of that was just cut it off. It was the 1800s, and one surgeon, Nathan Smith, had a different surgery, which would be very common in today's practices with anesthesia. Joseph Smith was given a stick to bite on, and no alcohol, no anesthesia at all, while he cut into his leg and chipped off a piece of his leg bone. I just had surgery and I had a bone removed, and I don't even like thinking about that, but being awake, oh my gosh. But the fact of the matter is he grew up to be a monster, so it makes me feel a little less bad about that situation. That's very unchristian-like of me. I'm not perfect. This is just obviously, like I said, an early bit of Joseph Smith. He's a far more complex character. When I'm able to, I'm going to have a more in-depth walk through of his whole life. Hopefully I can have some Mormons on, or ex-Mormons, anyone who really has an inside scoop about this incredible story of Joseph Smith, followed by Brigham Young, and man, that man was even crazier when I get to him. Yeah, this is one for history, and it's still going. One of the most powerful churches in all of America. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.